So for the second table, like I said, the first thing we need to deal with from the first table which we had was getting the pivot row. Pivot row divided by the pivot coefficient. Our pivot coefficient from the last one was 2, right? And then the pivot row was 8, 1, 2, 0, 1, 0. And that gives us 4, 0.5, 1, 0.5, 0. So we plug this into the second row. And I need you to observe that here has changed because this has now come here, because this was the pivot column before and this was the pivot row. So S2 left, the stone is now on top of X2. So X2 comes here and we know that X2 is represented as loans. So it changes to loans here. You have your X2 and then the new X2 is 4, 0.5, 0. Something is missing. We have a 0 here. So there's a 0 right here. So we have a 0 and then we have a 0.5 and then we have a 0. It makes more sense, right? So this is 4, 0.5, 1, 0, 0.5 and then 0. Then for the new first row, the formula is usually different. The formula is giving us, I can wipe this off now. So the formula is your old first row, even though there's another method to this, but this is the safest method. The old first row minus whatever was on the pivot column in the last table. So you go back to your old table, and then our pivot column there was X2. So the pivot column was 1 for the first row, because this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row. The pivot column of the pivot row, not the pivot column, what was on the first row of the pivot column was 1. So it will be the old first row minus 1 multiplied by your new second row, which is what we got here, right? So what we have is the old first row. What are the figures that are there? From there we have 3, 1, 1, 0, 0, right? And 9. So let's start with 9. Let's start with 9 so that it doesn't get confusing, because 9 will be the first one here. So we have 9, 3, 1, 1, 0, 0, minus 1 multiplied by all of that will still be the same thing. So if you say 1, let's just put it just for clarification. 1 multiplied by 4, 0.5, 1, 0, 0.5, and 0. So it still gives you the same thing, right? Because anything multiplied by 1 is 1. So indirectly what we have is 9, 3, 1, 1, 0, 0, minus 4, 0.5, 1, 0, 0.5, 0. So this 9, I'm going to be using shapes to represent them. 9 is with this, 3 is with this, 1 is with this, this is with this. A box is with this, and then this is with this. Does it make sense? So 9 minus 4 gives us what? 5. 3 minus 0.5? 2.5. 1 minus 1? 0, right? We're still on 1 bar. 1 minus 0. Right? I'm correct now. 1. 0 minus 0.5. Minus 0.5, right? And then 0 minus 0 is 0. So there's no confusion here now. Straight up. So same thing with the third row. Same formula. So the formula is now, we're done with this, right? Yeah. So we can wipe this off. So the formula for third row is still the same thing. Old third row minus, now we must be careful. What we have here is minus 5. So we put it as minus 5. Are you with me? Such that minus and minus changes to plus because it's the negative sign that's already there. So minus and then new multiplied by the new second row. Are you with me? So what we have is the old third row. What do we have? So it's 0, minus 4, minus 5, 0, 0, 1. Right? I'm correct now. And then this becomes plus, just to be safe, so that you don't waste your time. Minus times minus gives you plus. Plus 5 multiplied by new second row. So let's just multiply it out straight without wasting time. The new second row is 4, 0.5, right? 1, 0, 0.5, and 0. So we have this, this, and this, right? So 5 times 4 is what? 20. I have 20 and then 0. So what we have is 0, minus 4, minus 5, 0, 0, 1, plus. So our shapes again, triangle, circle, X, and good. Same thing here, triangle, circle, and good. Now, as silly as these things look, there are cues that will make you not make mistakes. Because a couple of times, you see this 0 and 0.5, it just has a way of messing with us. And then you don't get to see it. And then you just think that, okay, I've already done the zeros and they're out. So these shapes give you that cue that, okay, I have to match each of them until I'm done. So it makes you not forget, because a couple of times people get to calculate and eventually they see they've done only 5 figures, and in some exam conditions time is already gone, and then they have to rub off and start all over, and it just all waste of time. So to be safe, you just put these shapes just to give you those cues. So we have 0 plus 20 gives us what? 20. Then minus 4 plus 2.5 is minus 1.5. Minus 5 is a 0, and this is 1. So we have our new second table. So which is the most negative on this row? On the last row, minus 1.5. So we have our new pivot column. These are pivot column, PC, I like to call it. And from the PC, we now get our, what do they call it? How much? So we divide these values by this. So 5 divided by 2.5, that's 2. 4 divided by 0.5, 8. That should be 8. 2 divided by minus 1.5 is already negative, so we are 20. We're already in negative territory, so there's no need putting it. So this and this, which do we pick? Lowest. Which one are we kicking out? Okay. What we divided by? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So we divide our values by the pivot column. So when you've picked your pivot column, that's the most negative, you get your pivot column. Whatever your pivot column is, you divide the values you have here by the pivot column alone, just the pivot column. In the first one, our pivot column was x2. So that's why we divided it by the figures in x2. Since our pivot column is x1, we're dividing. If the pivot column was s2, we divide it by what is here. There you be. So we have this divided by this. Let me mark it. We have this divided by this divided by this, and this divided by this. But this is always in negative territory, so there's no need, because this is where you got your negative figure from. So you're definitely going to get a 0 or a negative figure. So at the end of the day, we're dealing with this. So you now pick the lowest values, right? And the lowest value, like I told you, if you're picking which one will benefit you more, is 8. So we are putting out this one. So this becomes our out variable, right? So, and it becomes our pivot row, PR. It becomes our pivot row, and we're kicking this one out. So if we're kicking this one out, this is S1, right? So this stone is going to move from here, right, to here. Are you with me? So this becomes our new in variable for the next table. Because this is now the out variable, because this is the lowest number here. So are you going to use 2,000 or 8,000 for your business? And so you're removing it from the equation, you're picking the 8,000. So you're going to the next table. Until this place becomes negative, you keep picking the higher figures for yourself, for your business. Alternatives are changing because things are changing, variables are changing. So as the variables are changing, depending on what environment you find yourself, you pick the best alternative. The best is here, 8, but you kick out 2. Since 2 is the lowest, you kick out 2. Then the stone moves from S1, which was your former option, to X1, which is the new one that you're picking. Because now, this is the one that is entering the next table. Are you with me? So you are picking this one to look for which one you kick out and replace it with. Are you with me? So in our next table, we're going to show it. So the store moves from S1 to X1. And then in our next table, we'll do the last one, and then we'll round up from there.